got here Chris Lewis. You just put out a solo record, and other people from a band called the Kinison, and you're a songwriter amongst many other tags you might have. So tell me a little bit about how did you fall into this wonderful world called rock and roll?
That's a great question. I started playing drums like at the age of 4 or 5, really young. My dad was like an 80s rock and roll guy. He was in cover bands, and they would do regional tours. And my first actual memory is me laying. My grandmother had a mobile home, and in the very back room of that mobile home in Southern Illinois, um, my memory is laying on this heater vent, like the vent, the heat would be pumped out like from under the floor,
Yeah.
like super old school. And I remember laying on that vent, and putting on Billy Joel's Piano Man on repeat on vinyl, like a 7-inch. And I had to be 2.5 or 3, and
Hmm.
and that's just kind of always what I did. Playing drums early, and then there was always instruments playing around the house. My dad's a really great pianist, and
Hmm.
he can play all kinds of instruments. So there was stuff always laying around. I picked up bass guitar pretty young and guitar pretty young. So that's all. Like in junior high, I was already playing in garage bands and punk bands, and it really chose me. Like I had no real option. That's just what happened.
So it wasn't like, okay, is it rock and roll or law school? So then you're like, okay, rock and roll it is.
Law school never was in my peripheral.
Okay. Uh, And if I remember correctly, you mentioned Southern Illinois, so you're from what's that town called, like Oblong or something like
Yeah.
that, right?
Yep. Yep. Population, I think we're at 1,600, but there's no way more than 1,000 people live there right now. I mean,
Okay.
as you pull into town, it says 1,600 or whatever, but there's no way it must have been from the last census, in 10 years
Yeah.
ago.
So where exactly in the state is it? You're closer to St. Louis, is that right?
So we are in the southeastern, but you know, Illinois is a long state like California. So
Yeah.
anything south of Peoria is
Hmm.
considered like the South, but we're really in the central area. It's in between St. Louis and Indianapolis. So growing up, if we wanted to go to a mall, it would be an hour to Terre Haute, or 2 hours to St. Louis, or 2 hours to Indianapolis. And Chicago is about 5 hours. So we were in the middle of nowhere, like literally cornfields and bean fields.
Wow. So how do you get a band started in a town with barely thousand, like little over 1,000
Yeah.
people? And then from there, how did you manage to even get discovered? I mean, it's like, I mean, you just mentioned it takes you a few hours to go to a show. So even to meet anybody, it takes a while to get there.
Yeah.
And then on top of it, if you get a band going, and then it's already hard enough to get discovered, but then somehow you made that drive just to get discovered. So,
Well, the answer to the first part of your question, me and two of my closest friends, they played guitar,
mhm.
and we, we were playing in, like I said, punk bands in like seventh and eighth grade,
Yeah.
and through my high school years, we would make demos like in my garage. I would play drums on them, and then they'd put down the guitar and bass, and then I'd put vocals on them, and we would just print CDRs with my parents main computer or whatever. Then
Yeah.
we would just jump in the car and drive 2 hours, drive 3 hours, drive 5 hours, and I would stand in line and hand out CDs like before the show opened, even if we weren't going to go to the show.
Hmm.
And it was like like guerrilla style promotion. I remember, we went to we drove like 2 or 3 hours to see Deftones and Glassjaw open, and I was like 17 or something. I'm knocking on Glassjaw's RV door, and I'm like, "Hey, take these!" And I like throwing CDs at them, and that's exactly how we got discovered. Is that through our mutual friend Paul, like Paul Fig, how we got this set
Yeah.
up. My band and I drove to St. Louis to see Amen, the band Paul was in.
Yeah.
And I just walked up to the singer, Casey Chaos, and had a CDR with said Kinison on it, handed it to him. And then 2 hours later, he came and grabbed me. I was standing in the second or third row. He came and grabbed me. He's like, "Oh my God, what are you doing in this band?" Like, "Oh, I'm the vocalist." He's like, "Come with me." So I took the rest of the band. We went on their bus, and I think initially the idea was, because the producer, gosh, I'm drawing a blank now. Ross Robinson. Ross produced, he produced Glassjaw at the Drive-In, Amen. So he was like, "Hey, let me hook you up with Ross, and maybe you can do your record." And then it just happened that Casey, the singer of Amen, was going to produce us, and we just started flying to LA and doing demos, and that's essentially how we got discovered. Is just, putting our music in people's hands and just saying, "Hey, listen to this," and you give us a call. That it's like that seems so archaic that is the way that it was done then, but
Yeah.
how we did it.
Because that era was really the pre-internet era. I mean, there were like some message boards, but it's
Totally.
not like it was now where you go on social media and you're like, okay, go stream my record on YouTube or Spotify or whatever.
Yep.
I mean, when you think about it back then, you're like, wait, how did I get my music out?
That's exactly right. Yeah. I mean, we had a website that I did, it was like a GeoCities website.
Yeah.
But yeah, we just print CDRs and write our name on it and just hand it out to people. Everyone.
Yeah. When you look back at those days, I mean, already as it is, your story is unique because you're from a really small town, and it's already hard enough to get discovered, and then somehow you beat the odds and figured out a way to make the stars align. Now, fast forward to today. I mean, does it seem like really surreal when you think back at how you did things? I mean, that you even standing here today talking about it.
Yeah, it certainly does. Um, I Oblong has a pretty good education system, but the ones that fall through the cracks, I see where they are today, and it's sad, And who would have? I don't know. Maybe if I wouldn't have got out of there because of music, who knows where I would have been. But it does seem really surreal. I'm we got to play Wembley Arena, and we got to play Coachella, and we got do main stage on Warped Tour 2 years in a row, and we were signed to Atlantic Records. And coming from a super small town, it doesn't, it almost looks like, it seems like that was a period of time, and then I took some time off, and now this is what I'm doing, and that almost seems like another person or another time of existence.
Yeah. So how long's it been since the Kinison was last active? Because you guys stop after a certain, right?
Yeah, I quit in 2005.
Okay.
And then we got back together and did a single with Paul Fig 7 or 8 years ago. We just got all got in a room. We didn't play live or anything. We got in a room and wrote and recorded with Fig, and a small label put it out. But we've been, essentially inactive, on this scene since 2005.
Okay. So did you just stop doing music period during that time, or were you just kind of doing little projects while you're doing something else?
I took a pretty extended time off. I was in a band called Pioneers, but that was much later. After Kinison, I really didn't touch music for a while. I just stayed away from it. I actually moved back to Illinois.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What was that like? I mean, you're in LA for a while, and then you're moving back to Illinois? Was it kind of a culture shock after being away from there for so long?
Sure. Yeah, I actually moved back into my parents' house, into the room I grew up in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So there was quite a bit of humility. I had like all of my LA, connections or whatever had dried up. And
Mm,
I have a younger brother who's mentally disabled.
uh,
So I moved back home to help my parents. I actually went back to college and, just kind of did I was 25 or 26 living at in my parents' house in
yeah.
the room I grew up in, just kind of pushed the reset button. But I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say it was a culture shock because I still go back there, a few times a year, but
Hmm.
but I always knew there was when you go visit, there's always a way out. You're like, I'm out of here, and in three
Yeah.
days. But there, I was just home for 2 years, so that was bizarre. And you notice that I had evolved quite a bit as a person, traveling the world and doing music professionally. But a lot of those mindscapes, the people that you may have gone to high school with or hung out with, they haven't evolved so much, and they're essentially the same people. And that was a bit of a tug and pull. It's like, hey, remember when we were friends back in the day? But now I totally think differently.
Yeah. Okay. So what about the rest of the guys in the Kinison? Are they still in LA or did they move back home or are they kind of
they're
dispersed?
they're all over the place. Uh, I don't think any of them are back in Illinois, but
Mhm.
they're just kind of scattered. One's a lobster fisherman. One lives like in Hollywood. Yeah,
Oh, okay. So none of them are really in music anymore.
not like as a profession, or I mean they may dabble, but I don't think any of them are really releasing records.
Oh, okay. Cause when I heard about you're back up and running again, I was like, okay, that was a name I hadn't heard. So I was like,
Yeah,
oh. Then I came across your record and I was like, and then I was expecting to hear like a punk rock record, and then it was completely the opposite of that.
yeah,
So
yeah.
tell me about the making of the solo record, because I mean, you had some really good songs on there, and I mean, it was obviously not angry like the Kinison was, but you kind of it's very stripped down. It kind of reminds me sort of in a vein like I guess it's very Beatles-esque with a little bit of like maybe like classic rock feel to it, if
Sure.
you want to call it that. So that's just another side of you that was itching to come out that you just wanted to show when you're making a record, or was it just more like you just want to try something different? Or tell me a little bit about.
So to answer your question, I would say that I have always personally written music similarly to my uh, the newest Lewis record, right?
Mhm,
I was not the songwriter in the Kinison. I was the vocalist, and I
mhm,
helped produce and piece things together, visually. We were a really, take it was the music was quite sophomoric, but I
mhm.
will always stand behind how really good we were live, right?
Okay.
So when when it was time, I'd taken all this time off um, to do whatever I was doing, become a dad, um, and I had a few songs I had just come up with, and they were in a pile. And then my friend Manny Nieto, the engineer and producer, he posted online and said, "Hey, I'm moving out of town.
Mhm,
I have studio time open. Just text me." And I just happened to randomly text him. And I booked 2 days with him without really having anything planned. I
mhm.
had a few songs, but I booked 2 days in 30 days advance. And I just cobbled together some, 5 songs. And I realized, what, it's going to be most beneficial for me if I just play everything on the album. So I played drums and bass guitar, piano, did all the vocals. I did that in 2 days. Well, again, Manny, after we recorded, Manny moved to Hawaii. So I
Mm,
had songs, and I wanted to be part of the mix. It was really stripped down and really raw, and it needed some work. So I just called Paul Fig and I said, "Hey, can you mix this or help me
Mhm.
mix this? And I handed it to him. He's like, yeah, this is cool. I'll take care of it for you. And he mixed it and I sat in a little bit. And then in the process of that, we've always been good friends, but
Yeah.
over time things, you get separated from your friends and life happens. And we enjoyed working with each other so much and it felt so natural. I approached him and said, hey, why don't we do an LP together? I have 70 songs now, and we started pre-production together. And he called in a friend that was a drummer, and we did the foundation of the record was all done on the floor, meaning drums, bass, guitar, were
Yeah.
all done together, like old fashioned live style, 60s 70s, rock and roll. So the idea was like, let's make a rock album that
Yeah.
sounds authentic and real, like we're I my vocals maybe a little wonky, a little out of tune, but let's go in there and present an 11 song true rock and roll album. We're not going to use any tricks, like
Mhm.
it's we're clearly going to use 21st century recording equipment, but let's go make a rock album. And we did.
Yeah.
That's what Sun on the Floor is, that just came out like a few months ago.
Okay. So, is this something that I know with the world being a little bit off kilter right now, but was
Yeah.
this something that you're trying to find a label, or is this pretty much it for a release, or are you planning on doing more with this? Like, I don't know what the plans were originally versus what's going on. So I know I found it on Spotify, but
Yeah, I put it out on my own label, and really what that means is it's a name.
yeah.
I called it something, and I'm not opposed to putting out other records in the future,
Hmm.
but I don't know. I mean, if the proper, um, you know, the if there was a right relationship that's with a label that I trusted
Hmm.
and that knew how to work my album, and it was more organic. And the other thing is, those record deals, like, they're not the same as they used to be. you
Yeah.
know they're so different, and bands are not getting those Mariah Carey style $500 million deals any
Yeah.
longer. Like, kind of like the Kinison had. Atlantic Records just handed us a bunch of money to do a record, and those are difficult to come by.
Yeah.
Um, but I would like to explore to see what else is out there. But ultimately, if you're doing art, you want as many people to hear it as possible, but you want it done right. you know
Yeah.
and as of now, because of this year, we put the album out, but I'm not able to promote it. I can't play
Yeah.
live, I can't tour, and we're all in the same boat. Everyone is dealing with something similar. um,
Yeah.
so it really depends. I guess it's how we come out of this. I have a couple hundred songs ready to go in pre-production for the next album, and we're kind of just waiting in this purgatory. Like, okay, what do we do? Do we check the temperature of labels? Do we do another record on our own? What's you know what do we do? And we really don't even know what it's like out there because we haven't played a show. We have
Yeah.
we haven't gone and showed people the album in person yet.
Okay. Now, I guess backtrack a little. You, like we talked about, you stepped away from the music world for a little bit, and then
Yep.
you're testing the waters now. So, what is what kind of a I mean, what was going through your mind when you're slowly learning? You're working on your first music in so long, and then the climate's changed. You just mentioned like trying to find someone to put out music or distribute is already that's like pulling teeth at times. But
Mhm.
was it kind of what kind of things have you learned about the new music business that maybe you didn't encounter the first time around, and how did you learn to adapt to the current climate?
I don't know. I'm still adapting.
Hmm.
I the whole the whole Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube Music is all so foreign to me.
Yeah.
To get one of those online distro things that takes your album and spits it out to the world, that
Mhm.
so bizarre to me. I faced so many challenges, like when my EP came out, they put it out under the wrong name. So like all
Uh,
this self promotion I was doing, like on iTunes and Apple Music, it wasn't. It was like under Lewis something else, So like even when I would try to point people to buy my album or listen to it, it would just go to some weird place that wasn't me. You know,
oh,
yeah, yeah, and it took 2 weeks to fix. Like oh, the album came out today, but really I had to wait 2 weeks. Um, it's just so strange. To not even really have a physical copy. Yeah, I mean, I looked into, printing vinyl, but right now, like all the vinyl plants are way behind, and I couldn't get it in enough time. And then
yeah,
what do I do? Do I put 1,000 of my own vinyl in my garage and just sit on it, or like, I don't know? Do I invest in that? And then what's
yeah,
the ROI? I really don't know. I'm still learning, and like like Facebook and Instagram, and I've had people tell me, "Oh, you got to join TikTok." I'm like, what the fuck am I gonna do on TikTok? I want to put a 30-second clip of like of my video on TikTok. What I don't understand it.
yeah,
And I know I sound like a dinosaur, but I wanted to just make a rock album. That's
yeah,
I just want to get like with my friends and make a true rock album. And now there's all this new stuff that I don't understand. Um,
yeah.
it's so funky.
Yeah, no, I don't blame you because it's like there's people who've been in the thick forever and they still don't get it. So you're not the first person. I always like asking these questions, not to put you on the spot and make you feel awkward, but it's just because I think I explained, the premise of this channel is I call it reinventing the hustle and trying to create discussion about how people are adapting to the new music industry just because of the fact that it's just ever evolving and everyone's confused and no like how to get from point A to point B and say, do you want to buy my CD or vinyl?
Yeah,
And a yes or no answer turns into it's almost like it's like taking an algebra course where you're like, what the hell?
totally. I've had other people advise me to link up with influencers. So if they're playing video games, to have your song in the background. But how do you determine which influencer is best for you? Um,
Yeah,
how I mean, do you just send them an email or send them a DM and say, "Hey, I have this album. I have $500 to contribute for 30 seconds while you play your video game." I don't know. It ties my head in knots.
yeah,
It seems so full. It seems like backward to like how organic music was. Like growing up, your friend said, "Hey, check this out," or you would read some blog, or you just go to damn shows. you
yeah.
know
I face the same. I get these weird questions too. I mean, even when I'm trying to talk about somebody's rock band, and they're like, it's like, it's like, do they DJ? And you're like, why are we talking about DJing when they're a rock band?
yeah.
I'm like, am I really out of the loop, or am I missing something, or is there like confusion as to what the components of a rock band is, or am I missing the point somewhere? And so that's
yeah
where
what,
I'm
yeah,
just
what's
like,
the correlation between DJing and rock and roll? Like, I don't know.
I'm not sure either. I mean, I know there was a period of time where there were, I guess in that new metal era, there were some bands with DJs, like Incubus and Head PE, which that was part of the band. You still had guitars, bass, drums,
Yeah, yeah.
but usually the DJ is not supposed to take the place of the guitar player or the. But but then again, what do I know? It's like I don't write the rules on that.
Sure.
But no, I was just curious because it's like you've been gone for a while and then re-entering, and I have a lot of friends that have faced this kind of situation, and yeah, just venturing into the world of social media, and they kind of look at me like, "You want me to do?"
Yeah.
So okay, so also you're telling me you're writing some new Kinison songs as well, is that right? Or
No, no. We there was like a petition going around to get the Atlantic is held on. They
Mhm.
own the rights to our LP, so you
Okay.
can't get it anywhere. You
Uh,
can't. You it's not on Spotify, Apple Music, or anything. So and I've multiple attempts trying to contact our former A&R or our former attorneys. Um, I have reached out. So we were signed to Atlantic, but it was a subsidiary. So we were signed to a LaSalle Records, which is Travis
oh.
Barker's label. So it was like a sub label attached to Atlantic. But in reality, LaSalle Records was just one guy. It was like Travis was the owner, and then it was like one A&R guy, and then
Mhm.
Atlantic was, the umbrella. So I tried to reach out to Travis. I tried to reach out to Travis's management. I tried to reach out to our A&R and like everyone, and I couldn't get a response.
Mhm.
And I finally got a hold of our former attorney, and she's like, "Yeah, they're in the works of finally putting it out," or I really don't know. So maybe that's what the confusion was. But I mean, I'm not really in contact with most of the Kinison guys, so um, I believe that's what it was. It's like we're just trying to get, you know, we worked pretty hard back then
Yeah.
on recording those songs and writing those songs. So I wish they could just come to the light of day, and
Yeah.
that's what we're trying to work on. What I'm trying to work on.
You figure that in this day and age of vinyl, I mean, it's like they would just maybe work out some way where you can, I don't know, cut and then that keeps them quiet and then press up a small batch of vinyl that people really want it and then everyone goes home happy. But I guess that's not quite that easy. So,
Um, so from what I understand, is our album was shelved. So
oh,
yeah, so the album, it I believe it was printed 2 or 3 times, like CD. It was never printed on vinyl. And then the band had broken up, and there was some determination made that, okay, well, this is a lost cause. Let's write this off. And they just took the album and they put it on a shelf and then said, forget it. The only thing Atlantic has done is they took one music video from the Kinison and put it on their official Atlantic YouTube page. That's it. Um, but even more, like you just said, printing the vinyl, even more than that,
hmm,
just put just put it on Spotify.
yeah,
I don't it's 12 songs or whatever. Just put it on Spotify. It's and I know we'll never recoup. I'll never see a penny of it. But I get DMs, and I get an email occasionally. Hey, why can't I get this? Like, it's up to me. It's like, no, Atlantic owns it, and they aren't doing the due diligence to get it out there.
yeah. Figure in this day and age, I mean, it's not like you're asking for money. It's just put the goddamn record out and clear your vaults.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like, it's not doing you any good collecting it is. So,
Yeah.
okay, but so I thought I heard something about you guys are, or you were writing some newer like Kinison material, or is that pretty much off the table?
Yeah, that's it. Everything I'm writing now is for my next record. So
Okay,
nothing new from Kinison.
okay. Do you see any possibility of something in the future, or is that something that's a big if if they pop out of wherever they're hiding from?
I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to getting in a room and playing music with those guys, but that that music we used to do would be very difficult for me to get on stage and to perform. You
Hmm.
know, some of that stuff was written when I was 19, 20, 21.
Oh, okay.
I'm in my late 30s now, and it's like to sing about doing coke and stuff like I
Yeah,
yeah, it's just a little odd, I think.
yeah, that's true. So I know you're talking about to the whole world shutting down. You were planning on playing live and things like that, but have you explored like doing things like the live stream or anything like that, or is that something that you're thinking about or even exploring? I don't know where we are in terms of how close we're playing live for anyone, so I think
Yeah.
maybe trying some of these alternative ideas maybe or
Yeah, we've considered, Paul and I have considered, you know, he is part owner of Dave's Room in
Okay.
North Hollywood, and we've considered just setting up like a band
Hmm.
and recording live and filming it, and maybe not doing a live, you know, a live stream, but
Hmm.
just kind of using that as like, hey, this is what we look like potentially live. You know?
Yeah.
But I haven't done anything yet.
Hmm.
It, you know, the when the album came out, it was pretty lackluster. It was really difficult to get any reviews. It was difficult uh, to really get any excitement generated. So, you know, and those platforms are awesome once you have like some sort of established, you know, fan base, or, but like to do a live stream for your mom and dad is a little, it's kind of a bum out.
Yeah.
You know?
Understandable. Okay. So other than music, what are you up to these days? What are you doing in terms of in life?
I work for a tech company.
Oh,
and we're
okay.
we're all remote. It's a third party add-on management program. I work in product development, and but I study, you know, I do a lot of like independent studies, and going back to school and working on some anthropology things.
Okay.
I did a lot of weird health things over the summer where I was like studying fasting and like pushing myself to the limits and seeing like what I could, you know, what I could do as far as caloric intake and all kinds of fun stuff.
Oh, cool. Okay. Now, I was just curious because I mean it's been a while since you've done you've done music, and then you must have been involved in all sorts of other things. So.
Oh yeah, totally. I ran restaurants for a while.
Hmm.
I for a short period of time I wrote for sports blogs.
Okay.
Yeah, I was like an NBA beat writer kind of.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I've done all kinds of really strange things.
Okay. So I mean, during your time off, like, and away from music, have you had any weird run-ins with like Kinison fans and maybe like someone who recognized you and they're wondering why you're not doing music? Have you had any of those kind of run-ins and tell?
Yeah, a few years ago, I went to see Jimmy Kimmel live. Like, I
Mhm.
just, you know, just sit in the audience, and um, directly to my left, there was like these two girls, and they were whispering and whispering and kept looking at me and looking at me. And then finally, you know, the one two seats away leaned over. She's like, "You are the singer of the Kinison, aren't you?" And, and I said, "Yeah, I once was." And then, you know, we had a dialogue about what happened and whatever. And I was like, "Geez, that's so weird. You know, it's been so long since I've done that, and to get
Yeah.
recognized like at Jimmy Kimmel." And then she's like, "You know, you should get the band back together and like play Jimmy Kimmel. I don't know why you're sitting in the audience." I was like I'm running a wine bar down the street, you know. I'm not.
Yeah. Well, it's easier said than done sometimes. So
Sure. Yeah.
should have asked them, hey, if you know where the other guys are, I could use the help. Maybe they weren't the ones that started the crowdfund to get your record going, were they?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Okay. That would have been real irony if you're like, wow, they recognized it, and they're like, and then right after you get home, they're like, hey, there's a crowdfund to get your record. Just that's the weirdest coincidences when when all this stuff happens within like an hour and a half of your day, and you're going, what the hell just happened? So
Yeah.
I just, I'm the guy that works a job, and now I'm back to an old life that I'm not really sure I want back in. But okay, so all right, cool. So I guess so what else do you have going on that you haven't mentioned in terms of music or otherwise you want to plug?
Just the to Lewis, the Lewis EP and then the Lewis LP that came out in August, Sun on the Floor. Um, I, as I mentioned a bit ago, Paul Figg's, he co-owns Dave's Room.
Yeah.
It is the most comfortable. Um, there's something special about that place. It was called Mama Joe's like in the 70s or something. It was
Yeah.
Dave Bianco's, studio that Paul and his partner took over a few years ago. That place I absolutely love. But right now, again, we're just in purgatory, just kind of hanging out, waiting, and I just have piles of songs that Paul actually. I don't know if you can see it. That's Paul Figg's. That's his. It's his rig. It's like his portable rig that he ships around. It's like been all over Nashville stuff. But he brought it over to my place, and I'm a novice when it comes to Pro Tools. But I've been teaching myself Pro Tools, over this lockdown.
Oh,
And
cool.
yeah, what we'll do is we have a shared folder like in Box, and I'll do a demo, pretty bare bones, 5 or 6 tracks, some piano, guitar, vocals, and some electronic drums, and I'll, put it up in Box, and then he'll work on it, and then put it, and then replace it, and then we'll ping pong like that. I guess that's the new way that people are working on records.
Yeah.
And then we have so many songs we have to like leave notes for each other. It's like, oh no, this is version 2, and I wanted you to listen to version 3, and did you listen to the middle bar of that song? And it's a bizarre way of doing it, but what's great is that when it's time to go in and record, we have all this really great cohesive all this material that's laid out for us. It's mapped for us.
Yeah.
All of our tempos are chosen and our BPMs are chosen, and it makes it so much easier when it's time to go and really hash it out in the studio and take some final versions of it. So yeah, that's what we're doing now. It's just we're kind of always in pre-production. He and I. He may be working on, he just did the new System of a Down stuff, and then some Gary Cantrell stuff, but we're always just kind of ping-ponging things back and forth together.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I kind of sense that I see a desert trip in your future. You taking the music out to the desert and doing a big jam session.
Let's do it. We'll invite you.
I'm down.
Let's do it.
I could totally see that happening, because I mean that's probably the only place in the world that they're not going to send the health department to shut us down. I mean, it's like all you got to do is just tell. It's like everyone take a few back and don't, and then basically, and then you're like, okay, back to rock. So
yeah, a generator.
Yeah, because I mean it's like where else is there to play? I mean it's like we can't play the local pizzeria.
Mm-mm.
What else? There's no clubs, there's no bars, so the desert. So unless sand is illegal, then I mean it's like there's hope. So all right, cool. So I guess lastly, so if people want to find you on the wonderful world of social media, where can they find you?
The one-stop shop would be lewismusic.us. If you go there, you can get my Bandcamp and my Instagram and my Facebook and all that super fun stuff. But lewismusic.us.
Okay. And do you think you'll have like any kind of vinyl or physical product for people who are probably going to flood your inbox with questions about that? Do you think that that's coming in the future? Or
I would love to. Yeah, absolutely. That's important to me. I mean, I'm not a vinyl collector, but I have a couple hundred records.
Yeah.
And so that there's something special about holding it and looking at the cover and popping it open, and it emits a response that's really beautiful. So yeah, that's certainly in the forefront of my mind, something I'd like to do. That'll probably come closer to the time when we can play live. That way I have something to to sell, or to give out, like.
All right, cool. Awesome. Okay.